The road didn't have a name anymore, at least not on any map I could trust. It was one of those forgotten stretches of asphalt that seemed to exist only because no one had bothered to erase it. I remember driving slowly, headlights cutting through a thick, crawling fog that clung to ground like something alive. The trees on both sides stood too still, too straight, like they were listening instead of growing. My radio had stopped working miles back, leaving only a faint static that sometimes sounded almost like breathing. I told myself it was just exhaustion. Long drive, bad weather, nothing more. But then the fog changed. It didn't just move, it reacted, like it noticed me noticing it. Every few minutes, I'd catch shapes between the trees. Not animals, not branches, something in between. That's when I saw the first sign. A wooden post with no writing, only a symbol carved into it. Fresh, as if someone had done it seconds before I arrived. My tires rolled past it too slowly. I felt like I shouldn't have seen it all, like it was placed there for something else driving behind me. The deeper I went, the quieter the world became. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic. Just the soft of my engine and the faint, impossible feeling that something was keeping pace beside my car, just outside the reach of my headlights. I tried to turn back. I swear I did. But the road behind me wasn't there anymore. That's when I saw it. It was late evening when I started driving. The kind of hour when the sky loses its color. But the dark hasn't fully arrived yet. The fog was already there, though. Thick, slow, pressing against the windshield like damp cotton. My headlights cut into it weakly, barely holding the road together. The road was supposed to be straight. But it wasn't. It curved when I wasn't looking, then straightened again when I blinked. I slowed down. The engine hummed softer, almost careful. The trees on both sides stood too still, like they were watching without moving their heads. A road sign appeared ahead. It said, "Narrow bend 5 kilometers." I frowned. The word felt wrong. Narrow was spelled wrong. I kept driving. 10 minutes later, another sign appeared. Narrow bend 5 kilometers. Same distance. Same mistake. My grip tightened on the wheel. The fog pressed closer now, almost touching the glass. The road no longer felt like it was moving forward. It felt like it was repeating under my tires. My GPS flickered, recalculating. Then it changed. Destination deleted. Desti. I watched as letters disappeared one by one, like something was erasing my reason for being here. I tried to zoom out on the map. The road behind me wasn't there anymore. Just blank gray space. My throat went dry. Another sign appeared. Narrow bend 5 kilometers. But this time, the paint looked newer. Too fresh. Like it had just been placed there seconds before I arrived. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The fog thickened instantly. The road bent slightly upward now, like I was driving on a slow hill that didn't exist before. Then I saw it. Headlights ahead. Parked. Still. My chest tightened before my mind understood why. It was my car. Exactly my car. Same color. Same cracked left mirror. Same faint dent on the back bumper. But it wasn't behind me anymore. It was ahead. Facing me. I slowed down without meaning to. Inside the other car. I couldn't see a driver. But the headlights were on. Waiting. My engine kept running. The fog pressed between us like something breathing. And for the first time, I understood the road hadn't been going forward at all. It had been turning me around, again and again, until I was finally coming back to meet myself. The rain started just before midnight. Not heavy at first, just steady, soft drops tapping on my shoulders as I walked along the empty road. The village lights were far behind me now, blurred into glowing dots through the wet air. That's when I saw the house. It stood alone, warm light in every window. Too warm, like it had been waiting. I knocked once. The door opened before my hand fell. Inside, the air changed immediately. Dry, soft, almost comforting. A smell like cooked rice and clean would fill my lungs. My wet clothes stopped sticking my skin, as if the house was drying me itself. "Come in," a voice said, but I never saw who spoke. The hallway was long but simple, perfectly aligned frames on the walls. Every picture showed families, smiling in ways that felt slightly too still. I walked deeper. No one stopped me. The door behind me shut softly. I turned later to check it. There was no back door, just wall, smooth, painted, new. I told myself it must be inside layout confusion. Old houses do that. But then I noticed the hallway again. It looked the same direction I came from. I walked forward, reached the living room. Same sofa, same table, same photo frame slightly tilted. I turned back. The hallway was still there. I tried another door. Kitchen, same window, same chair. Every door led to the same place. Always the same hallway waiting quietly like it was breathing slowly with me. My reflection in the glass cabinet caught my eye. I froze. My face looked the same, but slightly older. I blinked. It looked older again, faster this time. I stepped closer. The reflection didn't match my movement exactly. It lagged, half a second behind, then a full second. Then it smiled when I didn't. I backed away. The house stayed silent. Too silent. Even the rain outside felt far away now. I checked the hallway again. It had changed, not visually, but in feeling, like it no longer led anywhere outside at all, just loops inside itself. And I understood then, this house was never built to let anyone leave, only to make sure they stayed long enough to become part of it. We entered the forest just before sunset. 3 of us, backpacks, flashlights, quiet jokes that faded faster than they should have. The trees were dense, too close together. Their branches leaned inward like they were listening even before we spoke. At first, it felt normal. Wind through leaves, distant birds. But when we spoke, something changed. "Hello," my friend said. The forest answered, but not correctly. "Hello?" The word came back stretched, distorted, like it had been chewed by the air before returning. We stopped walking. I tried again. "Can anyone hear us?" The trees replied. But wrong again. "Can anyone hear?" We looked at each other. No one laughed this time. The deeper we went, the quieter the animals became. No birds, no insects, just our steps sinking into soft earth that felt too warm. Then we found the clearing. Perfect circle. No grass, just bare ground. No animals anywhere near it. We didn't enter. We just stood at the edge. The forest around it felt different, like it was holding its breath. That night, we made a small fire outside the clearing. We didn't speak much, but the forest did. It echoed everything. Not immediately. A delay, then distortion, then correction. Like something learning language from us slowly. Then came the silence. No echoes returned. Only one voice. Not ours. Not even close. It came from deeper in the trees. Soft, low, wrong in a way I can't explain. "You are heard." We froze. The fire flickered without wind. The trees leaned closer, not moving all at once, but gradually, like a crowd slowly stepping forward. And in that moment I realized we weren't speaking in the forest anymore. The forest was speaking through us, testing how it felt to use our voices. The hotel was quiet when I checked in, too quiet for its size. The receptionist didn't look up when she handed me the key, just said, "Elevator is down the hall." The hallway smelled faintly metallic, clean but cold. I pressed the elevator button. It arrived immediately. No sound. Doors opened like they were already waiting. Inside, the light was too white, too smooth. I pressed my floor. The elevator moved, then stopped. Not at 7. At B1, the button lit up on its own. I didn't press it. It just appeared. The doors opened. Another hotel hallway. Identical. Empty. I stepped back inside, pressing 7 again. Nothing. The elevator went lower. B2, then B3. Each stop showed the same hotel, but slightly different. Lights dimmer, walls older, carpet darker, like time was thinning instead of space. Then new buttons appeared. B4, B5. I hadn't touched anything. My reflection in the metal wall looked paler each floor. Less like me, more like something copied poorly. The air grew colder. Not temperature, something else. Density, like breathing through cloth. At B7, the lights flickered. At B8, I stopped feeling the floor under my feet. At B9, the elevator stopped shaking entirely. Smooth, like it wasn't moving through a building anymore. Just something organic. The doors open again. But this time, there was no hallway. Just a room shaped like a hotel corridor. But wrong. Too narrow. Too long. No doors. Only walls that pulse faintly under pale light. I didn't step out, but I also didn't stay in, because I understood the elevator wasn't going down through floors. It was going down through versions of reality that no longer had names. It started with small delays. Nothing obvious. Just slight mismatches in my reflection. When I raised my hand, it followed a moment later. I told myself it was tired eyes. Lighting. Glass distortion. But it kept happening. Every day, every mirror, every window. Then one night, I saw it smile. I wasn't smiling. I was standing still. But my reflection wasn't. It looked directly at me and smiled gently, like it had been waiting for me to notice. After that, I stopped sleeping properly. I avoided mirrors during the day. But reflections don't need mirrors. They exist in glass, in screens, in water, even in polished metal. I saw it everywhere, always slightly behind me, watching, learning, then copying, but not perfectly. Sometimes it moved when I didn't. Sometimes it stayed still when I did, like it was testing me. One night, I turned off all lights, sat in darkness. No reflections, no glass, only silence. But then I heard it, soft tapping, from the window. I didn't move. The tapping continued. Slow, patient. I turned my head slightly and saw it, my reflection, standing inside the glass. Not behind it anymore, but inside it, pressing its palm forward. Slowly. The glass didn't break. It bent, like it was soft, like it had been waiting to let something through. I stepped back. It stepped forward. Perfectly aligned now. No delay, no lag. And I understood the worst part. It had stopped copying me, because it had finally learned how to lead. The station was almost empty when I arrived. Late night silence. Cold tiles under my shoes. A soft fluorescent hum above that flickered like it was tired of existing. The board had no proper names, only numbers, and they were wrong. They counted backward. 12, 11, 10, like the station was undoing itself. The train arrived without warning. No wind, no sound, just suddenly there. Doors open. Waiting. I stepped in. Inside, the air felt sealed. Not fresh, not stale, just paused, like breath held for too long. A few passengers sat inside, all facing forward. None of them looked at me. I chose a seat. The doors closed without announcement. The train moved, but there was no vibration, no tracks, only motion. The windows showed nothing outside. Not night, not land, just a dense, static darkness like the world had been erased beyond the glass. The first stop came quickly. The display read, -1. The doors opened. No platform, just another identical train, interior, waiting outside. Empty, but lights on. We didn't move. We just shifted into it. The passengers didn't react. Neither did I. At -2, the seats changed slightly. More worn, more faded. At -3, one passenger was gone. No one acknowledged it. At -4, I tried speaking. Where is this going? My voice felt too loud, too real. No one answered. But I noticed something. Their mouths were slightly open now, like they had stopped speaking long ago and forgotten how to close them. At -5, I realized the train wasn't passing through space. It was passing through absence. Each stop removed something. Direction, color, meaning. Even thought began to feel slower. At -6, I saw myself in the reflection, but I wasn't seated anymore. I was standing near the doors, watching myself sit. At -7, the lights dimmed without flickering. At -8, the windows stopped showing even static, just blank nothingness pressing close. At -9, I understood. This train wasn't moving through geography. It was moving away from reality itself. And the passengers, We were just what remained after everything else had been left behind. Still seated, still facing forward, still not allowed to leave. It began with a broken radio. Old thing, wooden frame, dull dial, barely worked unless I hit it twice. At first, only static. Soft white noise filling the room like rain you can't see. Then one night it changed. A voice came through. Clear, too clear. Turn left at the next street. I froze. The radio had no connection, no signal. Still, I listened. I didn't turn left. I turned right. 10 minutes later, a car ran the intersection I would have entered. I stopped using it after that, but it didn't stop itself. It turned on by force. Always at night, always quiet, always waiting. The voice came again. This is your schedule. You are already late. I unplugged it. The static continued. No power. Still running. The voice began knowing things. My name. My apartment number. The exact time I woke up without telling anyone. It never introduced itself. It didn't need to. Then it started asking questions. Why did you lie today? I dropped the radio. It didn't break. Only the sound changed. More focused. Closer. Like it had moved inside the room. The static became rhythmic. Not random anymore. Breathing. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. Matched mine. I stopped sleeping. But it didn't stop speaking. One night it said, "You will answer next time." I unplugged everything in the house. Still it spoke. From the empty air. From the silence between seconds. The voice became familiar. Too familiar. Like it was learning me by repetition. Then one night, I answered without meaning to. "What do you want?" The static stopped instantly. A pause. Then, to become uninterrupted. The next day, the radio was gone, but the voice wasn't. It used my phone, then my watch, then the hum of appliances. And slowly, it stopped sounding like something outside me. It started sounding like something remembering how I think. I noticed the number first. Apartment 4B, then 4C, then 5A. It changed every night, but the building stayed the same. At least, I think it did. When I asked a neighbor, he looked confused. "There is no 4C here," he said, but I had been inside it. I was sure. The hallways felt longer each day. Not physically obvious at first, just more walking than before. Doors stayed in place, but distance didn't. My keys stopped working sometimes, but the doors still opened, like they recognized me more than the metal did. That part scared me more than anything. Inside the apartment, things stayed familiar, too familiar. Same chair, same crack in the wall, same faint hum in the pipes. But details shifted when I wasn't looking. A photo on the shelf changed faces. A cup moved slightly between uses. The hallway outside became confusing. Left turns felt longer than right turns. Elevator buttons rearranged themselves when I wasn't watching. One night, I woke up to footsteps outside my door. I opened it. No one there. But the number had changed again. Now it read 6D. I was on the 6th floor. I was sure I wasn't. I walked downstairs. Or I think I did. The stairs kept repeating. Same landing. Same broken light. Same smell of dust and metal. Each time I turned, I ended up in another corridor. Longer. Dimmer. More empty. Then I saw a door open ahead. My apartment. But not mine. Inside, someone was sitting in my chair. Facing away. Same posture. Same clothes. Slowly they turned. It was me. But not exactly. Tired in a different way. Like they had been here longer than I had been alive. They looked at me calmly. And said nothing. But I understood anyway. There was no outside of this building anymore. Only versions of it deciding which one I belonged to. And they were still deciding. I found the lake by accident. No signs. No path. Just water between trees that felt too still. The surface was glass-like. Too perfect. I knelt beside it. And saw something wrong immediately. A reflection that wasn't mine. It showed the same place. But slightly later. A delay in time itself. At first, it was harmless. A bird landing before it actually landed. A cloud shifting before wind moved it. Then it became personal. I saw myself standing at the lake. Later that day, looking into it, I left immediately. But the next day, I still did it, exactly as shown. No variation. I tried changing everything. Different route, different time, different thoughts. It didn't matter. The lake was not reflecting. It was scheduling. Then I saw something worse. A future where I tried to avoid the lake, and still ended up here, watching it, watching me. I stopped going outside for a while, but the visions followed, not in dreams, in reflections, water, glass, even polished metal. Then the lake showed something new, a version of me watching the lake. From behind, I turned instantly. Nothing there, but the reflection stayed, smiling faintly. I realized then, the lake wasn't showing tomorrow. It was writing it, and I was only reading what had already been decided. The village looked normal at first. Small houses, dusty roads, quiet air, but something was missing. Not sound, not people. Shadows, nothing cast them. Not trees, not walls, not even me. I stepped forward. Sunlight was bright, but flat, like it was painted on the sky instead of coming from it. People moved slowly through the streets, but wrong, delayed. Their actions slightly behind their intentions. A man lifted his hand, then decided to wave. Half a second too late. I tried speaking to someone. My voice came out fine, but they didn't react. Not because they didn't hear, but because response didn't seem to arrive in them. At night, the village changed. Not visually, but completely. Everything became perfectly still. No movement, no flicker. Even air felt paused. I walked through empty streets. No shadows anywhere. Not even darkness under objects. Then I found the place behind the village. A structure underground. Warm light leaking from cracks. Inside, I saw them. Shadows, not lost, not gone. Collected. Stored like something valuable. Each one moving slightly. Detached from anything above. And I understood this village wasn't missing shadows. It had taken them. Kept them somewhere the rest of reality couldn't reach. And above it, people were still walking, believing they were whole. The library was already there when I first noticed it. No construction noise. No announcement. Just present. Between two old buildings that never seemed to agree on their own shape. Inside, the air was dry. Paper dust heavy. A quiet hum that felt older than electricity. Shelves stretched farther than they should have. Too far. Every book had a name on it. My name. Different versions of it. Some spelled slightly wrong. Some completely unfamiliar, but still mine in a way I couldn't explain. I picked one. The moment I opened it, the pages were already moving, not flipping, rewriting, ink shifting like it was thinking. The first line described me entering the library, but I hadn't yet. I looked up. The librarian stood at the far end. Still, no expression, only watching. Then she turned slightly and erased a shelf with her hand. Not physically, like deleting a thought. The books vanished silently. No falling, no sound, just absence. I opened another book. It described tomorrow, but wrong in small ways. A conversation I hadn't had yet. A decision I didn't remember making. Then the words changed while I was reading them, as if they noticed I was there. Shelf after shelf. The books grew more specific, more personal, until I found one with no title. Just my name. Inside, it was already ending. My life described in quiet detail, page by page, until the final paragraph that hadn't been written yet, but was waiting. The librarian stood behind me now, close enough that I could feel her presence without sound, and she whispered nothing, because in this place, even silence was something being edited. It started at 3:17 a.m. My phone lit up. Unknown number, but it wasn't unknown. It was mine. Same digits. Just older somehow. I answered. A voice came through. Mine, but strained. Slightly deeper. Like time had pressed it down. Don't answer next call, it said. Then it hung up. I sat there in the dark. Phone still warm in my hand. Waiting. The room felt too quiet. Even the fridge stopped humming for a second. Then it rang again. Same number. I didn't answer. It stopped. For 2 days, Nothing happened. Then another call. Same number. My voice again. Calmer this time. You already ignored me once. I felt my stomach drop. Time didn't feel linear anymore. It felt layered. Like I was receiving messages from different versions of myself stacked on top of each other. Each one slightly more tired. More distant. The next call came while I was awake. I answered before thinking. Silence. Then breathing. Not mine, but familiar. And then my voice said, "You will become the one calling." The line went dead. After that, calls came faster, sometimes minutes apart. Each version of me more broken in tone, more fragmented. Warnings stopped being warnings. They became memories I hadn't lived yet. The worst one came last. I answered and heard myself say, "I'm calling you from the moment you finally answer." Then the screen flickered. My phone showed a call in progress. From me. But I wasn't holding the phone anymore. I was on the other side, speaking into it, watching myself listen. I don't remember arriving. That's the first strange thing. Only standing at the counter. Keys already in my hand. Room 12. The receptionist didn't look up. Just said, "Same rules as always." I didn't ask what she meant. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Carpet too soft. Lights too dim. A faint smell like clean paper and old water. My room was already open. Inside, everything felt paused. A suitcase I didn't pack. Clothes I didn't recognize but somehow knew belonged to me. The clock on the wall showed 2 a.m. Always 2 a.m. No matter how long I stayed awake. I tried leaving once. The hallway was still there, but longer. More doors than before. Room numbers shifting when I wasn't looking directly at them. I tried checking out. The receptionist finally looked at me and frowned slightly. "You haven't checked in yet," she said. That was the first contradiction. That night, I noticed a room number had changed. 12 became 14, then 11, then 12 again. I stopped trying to track it. The bed was always made when I returned, even when I didn't leave it. Clocks reset every night. Same hour, same silence. Then the guests started arriving, but no one spoke. They just stood in hallways for a moment, then disappeared into rooms that didn't match their keys. One morning, I saw myself in the mirror, but I wasn't different, just slightly more faded, like the motel was slowly erasing who I was supposed to be outside of it. At night, I realized something worse. The receptionist knew my name, even when I didn't give it, and I understood, you don't check out a place like this. You just become part of its guest list. The mirror was already in the basement when I moved in, cracked, old, leaning slightly against the damp wall like it had fallen there and never been picked up again. At first, I ignored it. Basements are supposed to have forgotten things, but this one didn't feel forgotten. It felt aware. When I passed it, I saw a movement in the reflection. Not mine. Something behind me that wasn't there when I turned. I checked. Nothing. But the mirror still showed it. Standing too still. Watching too directly. I started avoiding the basement. But the house felt heavier when I did. Like something was waiting downstairs. Growing impatient. When I finally went back, the air was colder. Not temperature. Presence. The mirror showed more than the room now. A hallway that didn't exist behind me. Doors that weren't in the basement. Figures standing just outside the edge of reflection. I turned. Only walls. But the mirror kept showing them. Then I noticed my reflection wasn't exactly aligned anymore. It moved first sometimes, reaching for things I hadn't touched yet, walking before I stepped. That night, I watched carefully and saw it clearly. My reflection stepped away from me, not mirroring, leaving, slowly walking toward something behind the glass. I knocked. It didn't stop, just kept moving without looking back, like it had already decided I wasn't needed to complete the motion. And for the first time, I wondered if the mirror wasn't showing me at all, but showing what I would become when I stopped looking at it. The silence hit me the moment I entered the town. Not quiet, not peaceful, complete absence. No wind, no footsteps, no birds. Even my own movement made no echo. I spoke. My mouth moved normally, but nothing came out, not even breath. A man passed me on the street. His lips were moving, but the world didn't respond. It was like sound had been removed from reality itself. People continued their lives anyway. Cooking, walking, working, all in total silence. I touched a wall. No sound, no texture feedback, just presence, like everything had been muted at its core. At first, I thought I was deaf, but it wasn't that, because I could feel words forming, just not escaping. That night, I noticed something under the town, a faint vibration through the ground. Not noise, collection, like something was gathering everything that should have been heard. I followed it, down into an old structure beneath the streets. The deeper I went, the more oppressive it felt. Not loud, just full. At the center was a hollow chamber, and it was breathing, not air, sound, all of it stored. Every unheard word, every swallowed scream, every footstep that never echoed. And then I spoke again, accidentally, a single word, and something in the dark responded immediately, not with speech, but with understanding, like it had finally learned what sound was for. And I realized the worst part. This town wasn't silent. It was being listened to from below. It never stayed in one place. That was the first thing I learned. One day it appeared in a hallway at work, between two normal office doors that led nowhere special. The next time it was on a street wall, then inside a stairwell. Always slightly different surroundings. Always alone. A single door frame. No building attached. Just a door where a door shouldn't exist. People walked past it without reacting, like their minds refused to register it. But I saw it every time, and I started noticing something worse. It only stayed open for a few seconds. Then it disappeared completely. No trace. No mark, like it had never been there. For months, I missed it, always arriving too late, always turning the wrong direction, until one night I saw it again, right in front of me, in an empty parking lot, standing alone under pale streetlight. The door was open, just slightly, like it had been waiting. No hesitation this time. I walked toward it. Each step felt quieter than the last. Even my breathing seemed careful. Inside the doorway there was no darkness, only light, soft, warm, almost comforting. I stepped through, and the world behind me stopped feeling connected. Inside was a room, but not a normal one. It looked like a version of my life, a finished one, a desk with papers already signed, a bed already used, a phone already charged. Everything arranged like someone had already lived every day I hadn't yet experienced. On the wall were photos. My life, but older, complete. I saw myself in them smiling at events I don't remember attending, standing beside people I've never met, living years I haven't lived yet. Then I noticed something else. A version of me sitting at the desk, watching me, calmly, like I was the interruption. I turned back toward the door. It was already closing. Slow, unavoidable, halfway shut. I stepped forward, but my hand went through nothing. Only air where the doorway had been. The version of me inside didn't move, just spoke softly. You only get one entry. And I understood. The door wasn't passage. It was a selection, and I had already been chosen for the side that never leaves. It started with the stars. I noticed them shifting when they shouldn't, not falling, not rotating, just rearranging, like someone was editing the sky. At first, I thought it was my imagination. Long days, tired eyes, but it kept happening. Every night, the constellations changed positions slightly. Familiar shapes began forming, faces, places I recognized, even outlines of roads I had driven. I stopped going outside. But the sky didn't stop reaching me. It appeared through windows, reflections, even faintly in screens that were turned off. One night, the moon was too close. Not astronomically, visually, like it had moved lower than rooftops, hanging just above the street. Silent, watching. Astronomers on the news said nothing was wrong. No shifts recorded, no anomalies. But I could see it. We all could, but no one said it aloud. That silence felt coordinated, like speaking about it would make it more aware. Then I realized something disturbing. The sky wasn't random. It was focused. Every night, certain patterns appeared again and again, centered above me, following my movement. If I left the city, it followed. If I hid indoors, it bent around buildings. Always visible, always positioned, like observation had become its function. One night, I recorded it, pointed my phone upward, but when I played it back, the sky in the recording was normal, perfect, unchanged. I looked outside again, and it was different, closer, lower, more deliberate. That's when I understood. It wasn't changing for everyone, only for me, as if the sky had learned where I was, and adjusted itself accordingly, not to show me space, but to show me that I had already been located. I woke up in a hospital room. White walls, soft beeping, no windows, no memory of how I got there. A nurse checked my chart without looking at me. "You're awake on floor 1, she said. Floor 1 sounded normal, safe, but something about her tone wasn't. Too practiced, too rehearsed. When I asked what happened, she didn't answer, just pointed to the elevator, up for treatment. The elevator doors opened instantly. No buttons except upward ones. I stepped in. It moved smoothly, too smoothly, then stopped. Floor 2. The doors opened. Another hospital hallway. Identical, but quieter. No nurses this time. Only empty beds. A chart at the end of the hall showed my name again. Different diagnosis. Same signature. The elevator opened again when I stepped back in. Floor 3. Then 4. Each floor slightly more abandoned. Lights flickering weaker. Air colder. Machines older. My medical records kept changing. New versions of me appeared in files. Different ages. Different conditions. But always me. Always admitted. Always progressing upward. Never discharged. At floor 7, I tried taking stairs. But the stairwell only led back to the same landing. At floor 12, I stopped seeing staff entirely. Only notes left behind, written in handwriting that looked like mine. At floor 20, the hospital felt unfinished, walls incomplete, rooms half-formed, like reality was struggling to keep up. At floor 34, I found a mirror. It showed me in a hospital gown I wasn't wearing yet. Older, tired, already resigned. At floor 50, the elevator no longer showed numbers, just upward arrows, infinite, no destination. That's when I understood. This wasn't a hospital. It was a process, and I wasn't being treated. I was being moved through versions of myself until something decided which one should remain. I first saw the child near the bus stop, standing still, too still, small frame, pale face, eyes focused directly on me. It didn't blink. I looked away. When I looked back, it was gone. But later that day, I saw it again. Outside a shop. Same face. Same stillness. It didn't move. Just watched. And whispered my full name. Perfectly. Like it had always known me. I froze. No one else reacted. People walked past it like it wasn't there. I asked someone nearby if they saw it. They frowned. "There's no child here," they said. But I was looking directly at it. The next day, it appeared again. Closer. This time inside my neighborhood. Standing near my gate. It said my name again. Softer. More familiar. Like greeting me. I asked it who it was. It didn't answer. Just tilted its head slightly. As if remembering something about me I had forgotten about myself. After that, it began appearing everywhere. Street corners. Hallways. Reflections in glass. Always silent. Always knowing. But never acknowledged by others. Photos taken near it came out blurred. Faces smeared like wet ink. Except mine. Always clear. Too clear. Then one evening, it spoke again. Not my name this time, but a correction. "You used to remember differently." That night, I started noticing inconsistencies. Childhood memories shifting. Faces in old photos changing slightly. Stories people told me about my past not matching mine anymore. And the child always present in the background. Standing where I hadn't noticed before. Like it had always been there. Editing quietly, patiently, until I wasn't sure anymore which version of my life it belonged to. The river looked normal at first. Slow water, soft current, stones along the edge, but the reflection moved wrong. Fish swam upstream, not against water, against time. I watched one leap backward into the air and disappear upstream without landing. I knelt closer. The water showed scenes, not reflections. Events. A man speaking words before he formed them. A bird unflying into its nest. Leaves returned to branches. I followed the river downstream, but everything in it moved backward. I saw people walking in reverse motion along its banks, laughing before sound, falling before standing. Then I saw myself, younger, standing at the river, watching it. I hadn't done that yet, but there I was, already present. I stepped back instinctively. The reflection changed. Now I was smaller, unborn, before existence. The river shifted again, showing me being pulled backward through moments I hadn't lived yet. I stopped trying to understand direction, because it didn't follow any. Then the water began whispering, not words at first. Fragments, pieces of conversations I hadn't had, names I hadn't spoken, my own voice calling out from upstream. I followed it, against instinct. The river widened, deepened. Time became denser the further I went. Everything reversed faster. Buildings rebuilding themselves from ruins. People unaging. Stars reassembling in the sky. Then I saw the source. The river wasn't flowing backward. It was returning everything to a single point, a beginning that hadn't finished forming yet. And in the center, it was calling my name, not from the present, not from the past, but from before either of them decided I should exist at all. The house appeared overnight. I know because yesterday there was nothing there, only an empty patch of land behind the street. Black soil, broken fence, a smell like old ash that never fully left the air. But this morning, it was standing, perfect, 2 floors, fresh paint, curtains already hung, like it had always belonged there. Neighbors walked past it without reacting. One of them even said, "That house has been here for years." But I had watched that land every day. It wasn't there. I stepped closer. The air around it felt warm in a strange way, not sunlight warmth, memory warmth, like something had already happened inside it before I entered. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked newly arranged. Too clean, too intentional. But under the surface of the wood floors, there was a smell. Ash. Old smoke trapped beneath fresh paint, like the house had been rebuilt on top of something still burning. A photo frame sat on the wall. It showed the house engulfed in fire, but the date on the photo was tomorrow. I froze. Another photo next to it showed the same house rebuilt. Smiling family outside. Same people. Different timeline. All of it layered on the same walls. I walked through each room. Every surface felt slightly warm, like it remembered heat that wasn't there anymore. Then I noticed something falling from the ceiling. Soft, gray, ash, inside a house that had never burned, but somehow still remembered every second of it. And I understood this house wasn't built after the fire. It was built so the fire could happen correctly. It started with small gaps, a missing afternoon, a conversation I couldn't recall properly, faces that felt familiar but unnamed. At first, I ignored it. Memory does that sometimes, slips quietly, but then the photographs changed. I opened an old album and saw myself standing with people I didn't recognize, smiling like I knew them deeply. Their faces looked slightly wrong, but mine looked certain, too certain. The next day, more photos changed. Different versions of me appeared in places I had never been, standing in rooms I had never entered, living moments I couldn't remember, but everyone else insisted were real. When I asked, they all said the same thing. You've always been like this. But I remembered differently. At least, I thought I did. Then I saw him, inside a reflection, a man walking through my past. Not like a stranger, like a replacement version of me moving through moments I had lost access to. He stopped once, looked at me, and didn't smile, just nodded slightly, like we were exchanging ownership. The world began correcting itself after that. People stopped reacting to my confusion. They stopped explaining things twice, as if only one version of me was allowed to be right. I found a document once. Official records. My name, but different details. Different history. Signed in handwriting that looked like mine, but older, more confident. Then I realized the truth slowly forming around me. I wasn't losing my memory. Something else was writing over it, choosing which version of me would stay consistent. And I was no longer sure which one I was supposed to be. The station had no name, only silence in metal form. No crowds, no announcements, just flickering lights and empty benches that felt recently used. The board above the platform showed departures only, no arrivals, just lines moving away from somewhere unseen. Trains arrived anyway, but always empty. Doors opening like something had already left before they got there. Then they departed again, filled this time, but no one saw who boarded. The passengers never stepped invisibly. They just appeared inside, already seated, already gone from where they came from. The announcements played in reverse language, words folding into themselves before they could be understood. I stood there longer than I meant to. Time didn't feel right. Minutes stretched without passing, then collapsed suddenly into nothing. The waiting area changed slightly each time I looked away. Benches shifting position, walls extending further back, like the station was growing around expectation instead of structure. I asked someone what station this was. They didn't answer, not because they ignored me, but because their mouth moved without producing anything at all, like sound had been removed from permission. The next train arrived. I didn't plan to board, but my feet moved anyway. Inside, there were people already sitting, all facing forward, none turning. The doors closed. No sound, no warning. The train moved, and I realized something quietly unsettling. This station was not a place you leave from. It was a place you are processed through, until departure becomes the only identity you have left. I noticed the sky first going missing in small gaps. Not clouds, not weather, the entire sky. For a fraction of a second, it would disappear, then return, like an eye blinking. At first, I thought it was my vision, but others saw it too. They just didn't talk about it. The blinking became predictable. Every few hours, the world would pause for a moment without warning. Birds frozen midair, wind stopping instantly, then everything returning as if nothing happened. Except it did. Something always shifted. Small changes. Street signs slightly different. Buildings subtly repositioned. Memories missing tiny details. I started recording it. Every blink matched across multiple locations. Perfect synchronization. Not random. Coordinated. Then I noticed something worse. The pauses were getting longer, and each one felt like something was looking closer, observing more carefully. Not just the world, but those who noticed. One night, during a blink, I looked up directly and saw something behind the sky. Not space, not stars. Something layered underneath it, like the sky was a surface. A thin cover over something watching through it. When it returned, I felt different. Not physically, but recognized, as if noticing it had placed me into focus. Since then, every blink feels directed. Every pause feels intentional. And I can't shake the feeling that the sky is no longer just observing the world. It is counting who realizes it is watching. I remember the moment sound disappeared. Not gradually, not fading, just gone. 1 second the world existed normally. The next, absolute silence. No alarms, no voices, no wind. Even thoughts felt heavier, without noise to carry them. People didn't react. They kept moving, eating, walking, working, as if nothing had changed. But I knew something had, because silence is an absence. It's removal. I tried speaking. My mouth moved, but nothing reached outside, not even breath. Yet I could still hear internally. That was the worst part. Everything inside me still existed, just isolated. The world felt paused, but not stopped, like a system still running without feedback. Days passed like that, hard to measure, without sound. Time became visual instead of felt. Then I noticed something strange. I was the only one looking around. Everyone else acted certain, comfortable, like they had adapted to silence long ago. But I hadn't. Or maybe I was the only one who still remembered sound at all. I started noticing patterns. People reacting slightly before events. Movements too precise, like they were following instructions no one spoke. Then I realized something unbearable. They weren't living without sound. They were living without needing it. Only I still depended on it, still expected it, still searched for it. One night, I stood alone in an empty street. Nothing moved, nothing echoed, and I understood fully. The world hadn't lost sound. It had lost the need for it. And I was the only thing still listening for something that no longer existed. The mountain air always feels different at night. It's colder than it should be, even in summer, like the temperature remembers things you don't. I was sitting alone on a narrow wooden platform outside a half-abandoned ranger station, somewhere deep in the northern ridges where phone signals die before your courage does. The fog was moving normally that night. It drifted sideways, like it was being pulled by something just beyond the trees. I remember the faint hum of the old radio inside the cabin, looping static like a broken heartbeat. Every few minutes, it would crackle and go silent, then come back softer, almost like someone was breathing into it from the other side. I told myself it was just weather interference. That's what I always told myself. But then the forest changed. The trees stopped rustling. Even the insects went quiet, like the entire mountain had decided to listen for something I couldn't hear yet. I stood up, shining my flashlight toward the tree line. The beam cut through the fog in weak, trembling lines. For a moment, I thought I saw shapes moving between the trunks. Tall, wrong-shaped, too still to be animals. That's when I noticed the footprints in the mud, leading out from the forest, stopping exactly at the edge of the light, and facing me. That's when I saw it. The snow was still fresh when I first noticed something wrong. It had fallen all night, thick and quiet, covering everything in a soft white silence that made the mountains feel farther away than they really were. We were stationed at a remote ranger post deep in the upper ridges. No roads, no visitors, just trees standing too still, and air that always felt slightly too cold against the skin. I stepped outside just after sunrise. The wooden steps creaked under my boots, slow and tired, like the station itself didn't want to wake up. That's when I saw the footprints. They were already there, fresh, sharp, too clear for something left overnight. But what made my breath stop wasn't just that they existed, it was the direction. They looked like human footprints, but they were facing the wrong way, as if someone had walked backward. Heel marks pressed forward, toe marks dragging behind, like the person had been walking away from where they were going instead of toward it. I stood still for a long time. The snow around them was untouched. No other trails, no animal prints, no wind disturbance. Just those tracks, leading slowly across the clearing, then disappearing into the tree line. I remember thinking it had to be a mistake, until the radio inside the station cracked to life. Static first, then silence, then something worse. Soft footsteps, not recorded, not distant, close, circling, slowly moving around the building like someone pacing the outer walls, testing every corner, every blind spot. I froze near the doorway. The air suddenly felt tighter, like the forest had leaned in closer. The footsteps continued through the radio, even when nothing moved outside. Then, at exactly 3:13 a.m., everything stopped. Dead silence. Not even static. Just nothing. We were 3 rangers on duty that night. None of us spoke. We just listened to the kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting for permission. And then it started again. But this time, it wasn't coming from a radio. It was outside, under the snow. I stepped out with a flashlight. The beam cut through fog that wasn't there earlier, pale and thin, like breath held too long in the cold air. And there they were again, the footprints. Closer now, still backward, still wrong. But now, they weren't just leading away from the station. They were circling it, like something had walked around us all night, again and again, tracing the same path, learning where we slept. One of the senior rangers grabbed his coat and followed the trail. I should have stopped him, but I didn't. He walked into the trees without hesitation, boots sinking softly into snow that seemed too quiet under him. We watched his flashlight move deeper between the trunks. Then it stopped, just stopped, No shout, no crackle of radio. Nothing. Only silence stretching between the trees like something had pulled the sound out of the air. I went after him. The snow grew deeper the farther I walked. The footprints were still there, leading me forward, backward, wrong in a way I couldn't explain even as I followed them. Then I saw where they ended. A rock face. Solid, dark, immovable. But the footprints didn't stop at it. They went into it. Like the stone wasn't a barrier at all. Just the surface. And that's where his tracks ended too. No body. No blood. No sound. Just stone and silence, and those backward footprints pressed directly into something that should not have been walked through. I stepped back slowly. My breath felt loud in my own ears. Behind me, the forest didn't move, but I knew something had changed, because the footprints weren't gone anymore. They were back at the station, and this time, they were closer than before, right outside the door, waiting. The forest always feels deeper at night, like it grows inward instead of outward. I set my camp beneath a massive old tree that stood alone on a small ridge far from the main trail. Its trunk was wide enough that two people could not wrap their arms around it. The bark was dark, almost black in the moonlight, with deep grooves that looked like old scars. The air was still, but not empty. It felt like something was listening. I remember the fire burning low beside me, with snapping softly, sending tiny sparks into the cold air. The flames cast slow-moving shadows across the ground, shadows that never seemed to match the branches above. I thought it was just exhaustion, until the whispering began, not from outside, from inside the tree. My name, soft, careful, like someone remembering it after a long time. I froze where I sat. The forest didn't move. Even the fire seemed quieter. Then it came again, closer, same voice, but wrong in a way I couldn't explain. It carried my name like it had been spoken before, many times, by someone who knew how I said it when I was younger, a child version of me. I turned my flashlight toward the trunk. Nothing, just bark, deep grooves, and shadows that shifted slightly too slow. Then I heard it again, right beside me, inside the tree. I stepped closer, slowly pressing my hand against the wood. It was warm. Not natural warmth, not from the fire, something deeper, like something inside was breathing against the bark. And it spoke again, my name, but this time it sounded like it was trying to sound like me. I pulled my hand back and saw something new, carvings, thin lines etched into the bark that hadn't been there before, shapes, letters, my name repeated over and over in different handwriting, some fresh, some old, some so deep, they looked like they had always been part of the tree. The fire flickered behind me, and for a moment, I thought I saw the tree lean closer, just slightly, not moving like wood, like something aware, something patient. That night, I didn't sleep, because every few minutes, the whisper returned, and each time, it sounded a little more like me. We thought the storm was the worst part. It wasn't. We were descending from the upper ridge after 3 days of heavy weather. The path down was familiar, but everything felt slightly wrong, like the mountain had shifted while we weren't looking. That's when the fog appeared. At first, it looked normal, thin, white, moving between the trees. But it didn't behave like fog should. It didn't spread. It followed, always a few steps behind us, not surrounding us, trailing us, like it was attached. One of the climbers joked about it at first, said it looked like something was walking after us, but forgot how to be seen properly. No one laughed for long, because when we stopped, it stopped. When we moved, it moved, always delayed by a few seconds, like it was learning our rhythm. By the time we reached the lower cabins, the fog was still behind us, but it had changed. It was closer now, thicker, and it was already inside the buildings before we opened the doors. We found it waiting in the rooms, still, silent, like it had arrived early and was waiting for us to catch up. That night, one of our group went out alone. He said he needed air. We watched him step into the fog outside the cabin. Just one step, then another. Then he stopped moving, not disappeared, not ran, just stopped, like something had paused in mid-step. We called his name. No answer. The fog shifted slightly. and when it pulled back, he was gone. No footprints, no sound, just absence where a person had been. After that, the fog didn't trail us anymore. It stayed with us. Inside, I was assigned to document seismic activity in the lower mountain range. Nothing unusual ever happens there. That's what they told me. The stone I was studying sat half buried near a cliff face. Large, smooth in places where it shouldn't have been smooth. It looked less like a rock and more like something that had been pressed into shape. At first, the instruments only picked up a faint vibration, rhythmic, steady, like a heartbeat. I pressed my ear against it once and regretted it immediately because it wasn't just vibrating. It was inhaling, slow, deep, patient, as if the entire mountain was breathing through it. At night, my recording device captured something else, a soft sound inside the static, a breath, then another, then a pause that lasted too long to feel natural. Cracks began forming across the surface over the next days, not random cracks, shaped like something trying to form features beneath the surface, a suggestion of eyes, a mouth, something that was learning how to become seen. I tried speaking to it. I don't know why. I asked if it could hear me. The stone vibrated in response. Once, like a nod. After that, I stopped reporting findings, because the stone stopped feeling like an object and started feeling like something that was waiting for me to leave or stay. I couldn't tell which one it wanted. We saw it near the valley edge. A deer, standing perfectly still between the trees. At first, it looked normal, until we realized it hadn't moved in over an hour. Not even a twitch, not even a blink. Its eyes reflected the light too strongly, like polished glass instead of living tissue. We thought it was injured, but when we approached, it stepped back, slowly, without sound. No broken branches, no disturbed snow, just distance changing without movement in between. Later that day, it appeared again, on the opposite side of camp, in a place it should not have reached. There were no tracks leading there, no signs of passage, just presence, like it had been placed. The cameras showed something worse. It was always behind us, standing, watching, even when we saw nothing in front of us. The deer never attacked, never ran. It simply existed where it shouldn't. And by the third night, it stopped facing us. It turned and began walking backward into the forest, step by step, never breaking eye contact, until the trees swallowed it completely, but its reflection stayed in the lens. A second longer than it should have. The deeper I walked into the ridge trail, the more the world felt slightly misaligned. Not broken, just offset. My flashlight was the only thing keeping the dark from fully settling on me. Its beam cut to the trees in a thin, trembling line of pale white light, bouncing off fog that wasn't supposed to be there. At first, everything looked normal. Then the light shifted. Without me moving it, it angled slightly backward. I stopped walking. The beam stayed forward for a moment, then slowly bent again, like something invisible was pulling it, not toward the ground, not toward the sky, toward what was behind me. I turned. Nothing. Just trees, fog, stillness. But the flashlight didn't return to normal. It kept pointing behind me. Even when I forced my hand steady, it resisted like it no longer belonged to me, like it had learned something I hadn't, and didn't want me to forget it. I kept walking. That was worse, because the beam began showing things I couldn't see in real space. Shapes, moving behind me, too tall, too thin, never fully formed unless I looked through the light. Every time I turned around directly, there was nothing, but the flashlight never agreed. Eventually, it stopped obeying entirely. It refused to point forward at all. It only showed what was behind me, even when I wasn't looking, even when I closed my eyes. And that's when I realized something quietly terrifying. The flashlight wasn't helping me see in the dark anymore. It was helping something see me. I came back to camp just before dusk. The sky was fading into that dull gray color that makes everything feel unfinished. My tent was exactly where I left it, but something about it felt wrong. The zipper was slightly open, just a few inches, enough to notice, not enough to explain. I approached slowly, listening to forest around me. Too quiet. No wind, no birds, just a soft sound of fabric shifting, even though nothing was touching it. Inside, everything looked arranged. My sleeping bag was folded, my gear lined up neatly along one side. Too neat, like someone had studied how I organized things and corrected me. The air inside felt warmer than outside. Not comforting warmth, breathing warmth, as if something had just left, or was still there. At night, I stayed outside the tent. I didn't trust it anymore, but I could still hear it. Soft movement inside the fabric. Slow shifting, like someone turning over carefully, so I wouldn't notice. At one point, I saw breath marks form on the inside wall. Condensation appearing from nowhere. Shallow. Close. Not mine. Before dawn, something stepped out. Not rushed. Not hiding. Just leaving. The tent fabric moved outward like something brushed past it, and then silence returned. But nothing felt empty anymore, because I knew now it had already been inside long before I returned. The ranger station radio was old. We never used it unless we had to. Mostly static, mostly dead air, until it wasn't. It started with weather reports. Normal at first. Storm warnings. Wind shifts. Then the date stopped making sense. It began speaking about events that hadn't happened yet. Snowstorms that hadn't formed. Search parties that hadn't been sent. Then it said names. Names of people still sitting in the room. We froze. The speaker crackled again and repeated one name. Not loudly, not dramatically, just like it already knew the outcome. One of ours. We checked outside. Nothing had changed, but inside the static, the voice continued describing movements that were about to happen, exactly as they happened, step by step, breath by breath, as if we were already recorded somewhere else. Then the final broadcast came. No weather, no static, just silence that stretched too long. Then my own name, followed by a description of what I would do next. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. But the radio continued anyway, describing my death like it had already been archived, like I was just waiting to catch up to it. We unplugged it after that, but the silence it left behind felt worse, because now, nothing was broadcasting the future, but I could still hear it happening. We found the entrance by accident, a narrow opening in the rock face, half hidden behind hanging moss and cold stone. Inside, the air changed immediately, thicker, older, like it had been waiting a long time for us to arrive. The walls were carved, not naturally, not randomly. Symbols, names, modern writing, our writing. I stopped when I saw mine, freshly etched into stone that should have taken centuries to shape. We hadn't been here before, but the cave disagreed. The deeper we went, the older the carvings became. Our names repeated over and over, sometimes scratched deeply, sometimes faded like memory, sometimes written in ways we didn't recognize yet. As we moved forward, we began seeing things that hadn't happened, or hadn't happened yet. Scenes carved into the rock. Our camp, broken equipment, empty spaces where people should have been. Then the cave changed again. New carvings appeared behind us, closing the path we had just walked, like it was rewriting itself as we moved. One of us said we should turn back, but when we did, the way was gone. Only stone remained, and our names were already carved there too. It didn't rise properly that night. It just appeared, too close to the mountains, too large for the sky it belonged to, hanging low like it had fallen, but forgotten to hit the ground. The air felt different under it, heavier. Still, animals refused to move. Even the wind seemed hesitant. Shadows stretched upward instead of away from us, pulled toward the moon like they were trying to return something. We stood outside the cabin watching it. No one spoke. There was nothing to say that wouldn't feel wrong. The moon didn't glow like normal. It reflected, like glass, like something watching back. Then it moved closer, not across the sky, toward us, slow, impossible. By midnight, it was lower than the treetops, too close to mistake for distance anymore. And when I finally looked away for just a second, it felt like it had looked back longer. not into my eyes, into the space behind them. And I knew then it wasn't in the sky. It was above us, waiting for us to notice we were already beneath it. It started as something small, something you almost ignore in the mountains, a missing shadow. We were moving along a narrow ridge trail when I noticed it first. One of the hikers in our group didn't have one. The sun was sharp that afternoon, strong light cutting across the rocks, casting long dark shapes behind all of us, except him. He walked like nothing was wrong, like the world was normal, but the ground beneath him stayed empty. No silhouette, no darkness following his steps. We stopped. He stopped too, turning slowly like he already knew why. I checked again. Still nothing, even when he stood directly under open light. The earth refused to mark him. We told him it must be the angle, a trick of light. He didn't argue, but he didn't believe us either. That night we checked cameras. The footage showed something worse. He did have a shadow, just not at the same time as him. It moved slightly after his body did, like it was delayed. Following late, thinking late. Then, over the next hours, it stopped matching him entirely. It began acting on its own, and when morning came, he was still there, but mirrors avoided him. Reflections lagged behind, like the world was forgetting how to copy him correctly. And I realized something quietly terrifying. He wasn't losing his shadow. Something else was learning how to wear it. The storm didn't arrive normally. There was no warning wind, no distant thunder, just silence and then change. The first drop hit the ground like every other storm. Then it didn't fall again. It rose, slowly at first, like hesitation, then faster. Rain began moving upward from the earth into the sky, reversing everything we knew about weight and direction. We stood outside, frozen, watching water leave the ground like it had decided it didn't belong here anymore. The droplets hung in the air for a moment, suspended, then drifted upward in perfect lines, like they were being called back. Inside the rising rain, we heard something. Voices. Not clear, not human, but familiar in a way that made the skin tighten. One of the climbers stepped forward. Just one step, and the rain reacted. It wrapped around him, not violently, not suddenly, gently, like recognition. And then he lifted, slow, weightless, eyes wide, still breathing, still aware. We reached for him, but the rain separated us like glass, and he drifted upward into the sky that no longer felt like sky at all. After that, the rain kept rising, but nothing ever came back down. We found the feathers just after dawn, black, too dark for anything natural, scattered across the snow in a line that didn't follow any trail we had made. At first, it looked like animal movement, but there were no footprints, only feathers. We followed them anyway, because in the mountains, you always follow something, even when you shouldn't. The trail curved, then looped, then curved again, circling our camp without ever crossing itself, like something was drawing around us instead of leading away. At night, we heard wings, not above us, not beside us, everywhere at once, saw flapping through the trees that didn't disturb branches or wind, just presence. The feathers changed after that. They stopped being cold. When we touched them, they were warm, like they had just been dropped, or just left behind, as if whatever owned them was still close enough to take them back, and waiting to decide if it should. The compass broke quietly. No crack, no noise, just wrongness. We noticed at first when it refused to turn north. It spun once, then stopped, pointing straight down, at the ground beneath us. We thought it was a malfunction. We opened it, reset it. Nothing changed. It insisted. Down, always down. We marked the spot and dug. Shallow at first, then deeper, until the earth felt too quiet. No insects, no stones shifting, just soil that seemed to stop resisting us. We found nothing, but the compass didn't move. At night, metal objects in camp began vibrating softly, not violently, like something below was breathing upward through them. Then came the tremors, not from above, from beneath, rising, reversing direction like gravity had forgotten itself. The compass still pointed down. even when we held it above our heads. And by morning, we stopped trusting the idea of up entirely. It always appeared at the same time, just after dusk, between the same two pine trees. A shape, not moving, not changing, just there. We called it a trick of light at first, a shadow misaligned with branches, but it returned every night. Exact position, exact stillness, like it didn't need to arrive, only to be noticed again. We tried cameras. Every recording blurred the moment it appeared, not glitching, not failing, avoiding, like the image refused to capture it. The air around it felt heavier. Sound disappeared near it. Even footsteps softened, until nothing mattered except the space it occupied. We stopped going near that part of the forest, but it didn't stay there. One night, we found it inside the cabin window, standing too close, not pressing against the glass, just existing on the other side like it had always been allowed inside, and was only now choosing to be seen. No one moved, no one spoke, because something about it made silence feel safer than thought. And when we finally looked away for just a second, it was already gone, not leaving, just no longer needing to be seen there. We used to think the sky was the only thing in the mountains that stayed unchanged. That belief didn't last long. It started with the stars, small flickers at first, not random, not natural, patterns forming across the night sky, like someone tapping slowly on glass from the other side. We noticed it while sitting outside the ranger station. The air was cold, still, heavy with that kind of silence that makes sound feel far away even when nothing is wrong. One of us pointed upward. At first, we laughed, because it looked like stars were blinking, not fading, not burning out, blinking, in sequence, like communication. We brought out a radio telescope from the station. What it showed made no sense at first. The pattern wasn't random. It was structured, repeating, clear enough to decode. Morse. The message came through slowly. 3 words. We see you. No one spoke after that, because the sky didn't stop blinking. It only waited, then blinked again, like it was checking if we understood. And when we looked away for a moment, it felt closer, not physically, but aware, like the distance between us and the sky had stopped being important. The glacier was supposed to be dead. That's what we were told. No movement, no sound, no life, just frozen time. But when we drilled into it, we heard something inside, not cracking ice. Voices, soft, layered, stacked like memories pressed too tightly together. We thought it was trapped there at first, until the voices formed words. Fragments of conversation, names, places. Some of them matched people we knew. Some of them matched people still alive. We placed microphones closer. That's when it changed. The ice responded. Not immediately. Slowly. Like thinking before speaking. When we asked questions, answers came back through the meltwater. Clear. Too clear. It knew things it shouldn't have known. Things we hadn't said out loud. Things we hadn't thought yet. At night, the glacier reformed faster than it should have. Cracks sealing themselves like skin healing too quickly, and the voices inside grew louder, as if the ice wasn't trapping them anymore. It was holding them back from getting out or getting closer. We stopped drilling after that, but even from a distance, we could still hear it breathing in slow frozen layers. At first, it was just a trail, a simple path through the trees that we had walked dozens of times, but then the forest changed it, subtly, quietly, like it was correcting us. Every morning, the path shifted slightly. A bend where there was none before. A clearing that didn't exist yesterday. At first, we thought it was erosion, weather, wildlife, until we tested it. We marked trees. We tied cloth strips. We carved symbols into bark. None of it mattered, because by morning, the path had changed again, and our markers were always somewhere else. Not removed, relocated, like the forest had picked them up and rearranged them. We began noticing something worse. It wasn't just changing paths. It was learning us, predicting where we would go before we moved, closing routes before we chose them, opening others that led us deeper. We tried to leave, but every direction curved back toward itself, not trapping us physically, but logically, as if the forest had already calculated every escape we might attempt, and removed the outcome, silently, patiently, like a mind that didn't need to rush, because we were already inside it. It happened overnight. The sound disappeared, not slowly, not fading, just gone. No wind, no insects, no distant animal calls. Even our own footsteps felt swallowed by the air. We thought it was temporary, a shift in weather, a pressure change, but it didn't return. The silence stayed, thick, complete, like the world had forgotten how to make noise. At first, it was peaceful, then it became wrong. Because when we spoke, something answered, not immediately, a delay, a pause that stretched too long to feel natural. Then repetition, our words coming back to us, not echoed, reconstructed, slightly changed, as if something was listening and choosing better phrasing. We tested it. We asked simple questions. The silence responded with personal answers, things it shouldn't have known, things it had no way of hearing. And the more we spoke, the more it responded, until it no longer felt like silence at all. It felt like presence, surrounding us, listening without needing sound. And then it stopped responding to us, and started responding to itself. It appeared after the storm. That was the first strange thing, because storms don't create mountains, but this one did, at least according to the updated maps. A new peak, no records, no history, no explanation. We checked older charts, satellite images, survey logs. Nothing showed it before that night, but now it was there, standing where empty space used to be. We approached it with caution. The air around it felt unstable, like pressure without wind. The ground shifted slightly under our boots as we climbed, not crumbling, reacting. The mountain didn't stay consistent. Its shape changed depending on where we looked from, steeper when approached, smoother when observed, like it was adjusting itself to perception, higher when we doubted it, lower when we believed it. We reached a point where our instruments stopped working. Compasses spun, altimeters failed, time felt inconsistent. Then we realized something worse. The mountain wasn't being discovered. It was being noticed, and the moment we stopped looking at it directly, it changed again, not disappearing, just becoming something else. It began the way most things in the mountains begin, quietly, without permission. I noticed him standing near the edge of camp at dusk. Same coat, same posture, same way of shifting weight from one foot to the other when waiting. At first, I thought it was a reflection from glass or fog distortion. Then he turned, and I saw my own face, but slightly wrong. Not older, not younger, just delayed, like he had arrived a moment after I did. I didn't speak. Neither did he, because speaking felt unnecessary when something already knew your voice. He started following me after that, not closely, not far, just enough to remain impossible to ignore. Every movement I made, he repeated, but never correctly. A step behind, a reaction late, like a memory trying to keep up with real time. The strangest part was a shadow. Only one of us ever had it. Never both. I tried to document it. Cameras showed both of us clearly, but only one shadow appeared in each frame, and it changed depending on who was standing still. As days passed, I began forgetting small things, which direction I had come from, which voice was mine in recordings, which reflection blinked first, and worst of all, I stopped being sure which one of us was the original, because the mountain never answered that question. It only let both of us keep walking. The fog returned after the wind died, thick, low, moving like something thinking slowly through the forest. At first, it looked normal, until it spoke, not directly, not clearly, but in fragments, voices layered inside it like memories trapped in motion. We stopped moving when we heard our own names inside it, said the way only certain people used to say them, people we hadn't heard from in years, people who were missing. The fog shifted whenever we spoke, like it was listening, like it was deciding what to repeat. Then it formed shapes, not solid, not fully real, silhouettes made of condensation and breath, standing between trees that didn't react to them. When we stepped closer, the voices grew clearer, Conversations, arguments, laughter, all things we remembered but couldn't place, as if the fog had collected them from the air itself. One night, it answered a question we never said out loud, a question we only thought, and after that, we stopped asking anything at all, because the fog had started answering too accurately, like it knew what we were going to become before we did. The cabin was supposed to be abandoned. That's what the records said. But it never felt empty. Even before we entered, the air inside was warm. Too warm for something unused. The fire in the stove was already lit. Low, steady, like someone had just stepped out. The beds were made. Not neatly, correctly, as if whoever arranged them knew how they should be used. Footsteps echoed above us at night. Slow, measured, crossing from one end of the ceiling to the other. We searched the attic. Nothing, but the footsteps continued anyway, always responding to movement below, always adjusting. We started leaving items behind on purpose. Tools, notes, food. They disappeared overnight, replaced with new arrangements, improved ones, as if the cabin was learning how we lived and correcting us. The strangest moment came when I woke up and found my own handwriting on a note I didn't remember writing. It said only one line: "You're already staying here." After that, none of us felt like we were entering the cabin anymore, only returning to it. We found the sinkhole after the tremor. It was too perfectly shaped to feel natural. A clean opening in the earth, leading downward into darkness that didn't reflect light correctly. But when we looked inside, we saw the sky, not fragments, not reflections, a full night sky, perfectly still, stars glowing softly beneath us, moving in reverse. We dropped a stone into it. It never fell. It rose, slowly, disappearing upward into the inverted stars. Sound behaved the same way. Voices thrown into the hole came back warped, delayed, reversed, like time itself had been flipped inside. One of us leaned too close and whispered something into it. The sinkhole responded, not immediately, but clearly, repeating the words back from below, as if something was listening from the other side of reality. We started noticing changes after that. Compasses reversed, shadows pointing upward. Even our sense of balance felt wrong, like gravity was unsure of its direction. The sinkhole didn't feel like depth. It felt like another world pressed against ours, waiting for the surface to forget which way was down. We thought the mountain was just one place. We were wrong. It was all of them. Every story we lived, every place we feared, every silence we couldn't explain, it was the same presence, just seen differently. The realization came slowly, like remembering something we had always known, but agreed not to say. The deer, the fog, the cabin, the stars, even the silence itself, all connected, all pointing back to the same shape in the distance. The mountain didn't stay still anymore. It shifted depending on who remembered it. Each of us saw a different version, but it was always there, always aware, and it never forgot us. That was the worst part. Not that it watched, but that it remembered every step, every hesitation, every moment we thought we were alone. It had kept them all, not as punishment, as record, as if we were never exploring at all, only being collected by it. Now, when I look back toward the ridge, I don't see a mountain anymore. I see everything we ever lost inside it, waiting, quiet, still remembering us better than we remember ourselves. And I understand now, it was never the mountain we entered. It was the memory of it, and it never ended. It only kept going with us inside it.